And there has been 15 injunctions in 1 month of President Trump's agenda. The Biden White House only faced 13 injunctions in the entirety of his presidency. And so clearly there are left-wing activists who sit behind a bench in a courthouse who don't like this president and his policies. But the fact is, everything President Trump is doing is within his executive authority to do it. He is acting within the bounds of the law. All of his actions are constitutional. And our White House and the entire administration are prepared to fight back against this resistance. Don't bet against President Trump. I think his epic return to the Oval Office proves that he is going to win against the weaponization of our justice system.
Yeah.
The last 24 hours of Donald Trump's presidency have witnessed more criminality than we have ever seen, which is both scary and surprising that we are even able to say that, considering the criminality of all the other years of Donald Trump's administration. But what's not surprising is that MAGA instantly jumped to Donald Trump's defense. And, of course, I'm talking about his press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, who threw an absolute tantrum after Donald Trump was caught breaking the law and turning his back on the Constitution, as he always does. It's incredibly scary what is happening right now, and we are going to get into all of it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video and, if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into the assault that Donald Trump led on our Constitution last night, I first want to take a look at a local news report that is going to add some context to this story.
Well, there's a lot of news coming out of the White House. One item is President Trump's decision to revoke temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans. A decision met with controversy and a passionate response from the local community. NBC6's Laura Rodriguez is live from Doral with reaction this evening. Laura.
Well, some Venezuelans say they feel betrayed by the Trump administration, and they want to make it clear the majority of Venezuelans are not criminals.
And good people, I pay my taxes, I follow the rules.
Alvaro Duran is a TPS recipient. He's in the process of obtaining a green card because he's married to a U.S. citizen. However, his mother and siblings are now in limbo.
Go back to Venezuela is not an option.
Not an option for hundreds of thousands of people who say they may face jail time or retaliation for speaking out against the Maduro regime that remains in power. In a TPS termination notice, DHS said in Venezuela there are notable improvements in several areas such as the economy, public health, and crime that allow for these nationals to be safely returned to their home country.
Conditions have not changed, actually have getting worse.
At a press conference in Doral Monday, Venezuelan Americans denounced the Trump administration and South Florida Republicans.
More than betrayed, beyond betrayed. They used us. They actually, during the campaign, and I don't want to make this political, but during the campaign, the elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that he was not going to touch the documented people.
So, Donald Trump turning his back on a population of Venezuelan Americans is not something new. The betrayal is real. It is felt by that community, and even more so now after the illegal action that Donald Trump took, indiscriminately rounding up people to ship off to El Salvador. And not just in a dangerous way. It's more than just dumb because of the damage that has been done. I want to take a look at this very scary story, and then we're going to take a look at Leavitt's response. Venezuelan families. Fear for relatives as Trump celebrates deportations. The news that hundreds of migrants were headed to El Salvador prisons caused panic for some Venezuelans who worried that their loved ones might be among them. Meyer Casque's 24-year-old son last spoke to her on Saturday morning from a detention center in Laredo, Texas. He told her that he was going to be deported with a group of other Venezuelans, she said, but he didn't know where they were headed. Shortly after, his name disappeared from the website of U.S. immigration authorities. She has not heard from him since. Now he's in an abyss with no one to rescue him, she said on Sunday in an interview from her home in Venezuela. The deportation of 238 Venezuelans to El Salvador this weekend has created panic among families who fear that their relatives are among those handed over by the Trump administration to the Salvadoran authorities, apparently without due process. The men were described by a White House spokesperson as terrorists belonging to the Tren de Aragua gang. She called them heinous monsters who had recently been arrested, supposedly saving countless American lives. But several relatives of the men believed to be in the group say their loved ones do not have gang ties. So, Donald Trump's administration is indiscriminately rounding up men, alleging that they are gang members based solely on racial profiling, and deporting them to El Salvador without publishing any information for families, without due process, without a single question being asked, without a court order being followed. And even worse, when there are court orders, they are defying them, which we saw happen and which Carolyn Levitt responded to. We're going to take a look at both her statement and a clip that I think is really scary. Trump administration deports Venezuelans. Despite court order, says judge has no authority. A single judge in a single city cannot direct the movements of an aircraft full of foreign alien terrorists who were physically expelled from U.S. soil, said White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt in a statement. She claimed that the court had no lawful basis and that federal courts generally have no jurisdiction over how a president conducts foreign affairs. This turn of events represents a remarkable escalation in Trump's challenge to the U.S. Constitution's system of checks and balances and the independence of the judicial branch of government. And of course, we saw even more.
He has been facing more resistance than anyone who has ever run for office in American history. And the mainstream media is part of that. But also, as you mentioned, we have judges in our judicial branch who are acting as activists, not real arbiters of the law. And there has been 15 injunctions in 1 month of President Trump's agenda. The Biden White House only faced 13 injunctions in the entirety of his presidency. And so clearly there are left-wing activists who sit behind a bench in a courthouse who don't like this president and his policies. But the fact is, everything President Trump is doing is within his executive authority to do it. He is acting within the bounds of the law. All of his actions are constitutional, and our White House and the entire administration are prepared to fight back against this resistance. Don't bet against President Trump. I think his epic return to the Oval Office proves that he is going to win against the weaponization of our justice system.
Yeah.
This is the line that she continues to deliver. Activist judges. Activist judges, activist judges. A single judge in a single city. Single judge, single city. She continues to repeat that line, asserting it like the judicial protections in our system are a flaw rather than something that is foundational. And it is very important to recognize why they picked this example to specifically break the law over. It is because the communication instantly out of the White House from someone like J.D. Vance was, the Democrats are freaking out because Donald Trump didn't want to listen to some, low-rate judge in some small city or some small town while he's deporting terrorists, right? That's the line they're trying to deliver. These are terrorists. We're deporting them, and Democrats are trying to stop us. That's not true. Obviously, Democrats want violent criminals to be deported. But Democrats, not just Democrats, regular Americans, do not want other legal residents of this country rounded up and deported because of what they look like, shipped off to El Salvador without due process, defying a judge's order to literally turn the aircrafts around. These people are sent to a country they've never been to, maybe don't even speak the language. The article mentioned it was a notoriously violent and dangerous prison. That is what Donald Trump is doing. And he's using this issue so that he can say, the Democrats want me to listen to judges, telling me to keep terrorists in the country. No, that is obviously not happening. It is not Democrats wanting to keep criminals in the country. It is Democrats wanting to preserve a system of checks and balances. That is the American system of government. This is insane. But again, it is the cover for the first step of Donald Trump's plan to completely do away with our government as it has always been, through his lies about immigration. That's the cover. And so, just as important as it is to call that out, it's also important to call out the lies, which Jasmine Crockett did right here.
Mr. Beer, I want to play a little game with you. It's called rhetoric versus reality. And so, I want to ask you, my first question, is this rhetoric or reality? Immigrants commit more crimes than U.S. citizens.
On a per capita basis?
Rhetoric or reality?
Oh, it is rhetoric.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record this article, which states that undocumented immigrant offending rate lower than US-born citizen rate, and this is from nij.ojp.gov.
Without objection.
Thank you so much. The next one, immigrants are just living off the federal government and contribute nothing.
That would be rhetoric.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Chair, I would ask unanimous consent to enter study that says undocumented immigrants pay almost $100 billion in taxes. This is from the Alabama Reflector.
Without objection.
Thank you so much. My final rhetoric or reality question is immigrants only enter at the southern border.
Rhetoric.
Okay, right, because they enter all kinds of ways. I just wanted to make sure that I put that out there. In fact, I have a few more questions because I still got a little bit of time, which I usually run out of time. We have talked again about crime, and there's been this overemphasis on it. And honestly, I can tell you that I don't want anyone to be killed, whether it's here or anywhere else. There is nothing about me as the child of a preacher that makes me say that I want people to die, okay? So I feel as if my colleagues from across the aisle have decided that they are going to make immigrants the boogeyman. It's insanity to me, but they also are showing compassion for victims, which they should, but they have no compassion for people that are contributing to making us great in this country. So, interestingly enough, I'm curious to know, Mr. Beer, if you know if immigrants contributed to these particular crimes. There was a mass shooting in Buffalo, New York that killed a number of African Americans as they were trying to shop for groceries. Was the defendant an immigrant in that case? Do you know?
No, he was a US-born citizen.
Thank you so much. Charleston, South Carolina, there were black churchgoers trying to praise the Lord. They were killed. Was that an immigrant that perpetrated that or not?
No, that was a US-born citizen.
Thank you so much. Now, coming home to Texas, there was an El Paso shooting. Do you know if that was an immigrant or not?
No, they were targeting immigrants in that case.
In fact, each of these cases, it was white supremacists. And so the last unanimous consent that I'd asked for is this article that states that white supremacists behind over 80% of extremism-related U.S. murders in 2022.
Without objection.
Thank you so much.
This is scary stuff, truly terrifying. And we have to, again, continue to remember that this is all a cover. That Carolyn Leavitt, activist judges, is a cover to undermine, attack, and destroy our government so Donald Trump can be the dictator he has always wanted to be. And we have to call that out. We have to call that out every single day. And we're doing it on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around until the end, you can drop A in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.